All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most brilliant, most influential, and, let's be totally honest, notoriously difficult thinkers of the 20th century, the French psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan. But don't worry, we're going to make him make sense. I want to kick things off with a question that gets right to the heart of everything Lacan was about. Does the unconscious speak? Now, for most of us, that probably sounds a little weird. But for Lacan, the answer was a huge, resounding yes. He was convinced it speaks its own language. And if you have the right key, you can actually learn to decode its messages.
Look, if you've ever tried to read Lacan, you know his reputation for being obscure is pretty well earned. But stick with me. The whole point of this explainer is to show you that underneath all that complexity, his core ideas are incredibly powerful, they're surprisingly intuitive, and they might just change the way you think about, well, pretty much everything.
Okay, so to really get Lacan, you first have to understand the world he was walking into. What was the problem that he was so determined to solve? Well, it all starts with the father of psychoanalysis himself, Sigmund Freud. By the 1950s, Lacan looked at the field of psychoanalysis and thought it was losing its way, losing its revolutionary edge. It was getting all bogged down in biology, reducing Freud's incredible insights to just simple instincts. So his famous call for a return to Freud wasn't about turning back the clock. No, it was about rescuing Freud's original texts and rereading them with a brand new, super dynamic lens, the lens of language and culture. So how exactly did he pull that off? This brings us to Lacan's absolute central thesis, the one big idea that completely blew the doors off psychoanalysis and went on to influence so many other fields. And here it is. This is probably Lacan's single most famous line. The unconscious is structured like a language. Now that is a radical claim. He's saying that the hidden world inside our heads, our dreams, our slips of the tongue, it isn't just a chaotic mess of primal urges. It has rules, it has a grammar, and to understand it, he turned to the field of linguistics. He borrowed a couple of key terms. The first one is the signifier. This is just the word itself, the sound we make when we say tree, or the letters T-R-E-E that we write down. It's arbitrary, right? It could be arbol in Spanish, or like you see here, the Arabic script. The point is, it's just the physical form of the sign. The second term is the signified, and that's the mental concept, the idea of a tree that pops into your head. But here's where Lacan totally flips the script. He argued that the world of signifiers, the world of language, is what truly shapes our reality. We don't just use words to describe things. For Lacan, our words literally create the world we experience. The meaning, that signified, is always kind of sliding around underneath this chain of words. So here's the big payoff. If the unconscious really works like a language, then a symptom, like anxiety, isn't just a random glitch in your brain. A Freudian slip isn't just a silly mistake. It's a message. It's like a sentence bubbling up from the unconscious, using words in weird, unexpected ways. And the psychoanalyst? They're like a cryptographer, trying to decode that hidden message. Okay, let's see how this whole theory of language builds into one of Lacan's most famous and, honestly, most accessible concepts, the mirror stage. This is an idea that connects all that abstract theory to a moment every single one of us has lived through. Just think about it for a second. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt that the person staring back at you was somehow more whole, more put together than you actually feel on the inside? Well, that feeling is a little echo of the exact moment Lacan is about to describe. So the mirror stage basically happens in 3 steps. First, you've got an infant who feels like a total chaos of flailing limbs and sensations. Lacan called this the fragmented body. Then, somewhere between 6 and 18 months old, it sees its reflection. And in this amazing moment of joyful recognition, it identifies with that image. It sees itself for the very first time as a complete, unified being. This is the birth of the ego. But here's the twist, and it is a massive one. Our very first sense of I, our core identity, is formed by identifying with something outside of ourselves, an image. So from the absolute get-go, our sense of self is fundamentally alienated. It's based on an external reflection, not some deep internal truth. It's like the poet Rimbaud said, I is another. This idea that our identity is born from something external, first an image and then language, that leads us directly to another one of Lacan's most crucial concepts, the big other. So what on earth is the big other?
Well, first off, it's not a person. It's the vast, invisible structure of society. It's the entire universe of language, laws, social conventions, and cultural rules that existed long before you were ever born. It's the symbolic system that you have to somehow find your place within.
This slide gives us some great examples to make it more concrete. Language is the ultimate big other. We don't invent it, right? We're just born into it. Same goes for social rules, the law, and even the symbolic idea of the father, who represents that law and authority. For Lacan, the big other is the very fabric of our social reality.
And here's why it's so important. The big other is the assumed audience for everything we say and do. When you speak, you're not just talking into a void. You're implicitly assuming there's a shared system of meaning that will understand you. This is the source of all social pressure. We are constantly performing for and being shaped by this invisible audience that gives our lives and words meaning. So, after all that, what do we do with these ideas? Lacan is still a deeply controversial figure, but his impact, it's absolutely undeniable. You can see here his influence just exploded far beyond the psychoanalyst's office. He gave fields like film theory and literary criticism this powerful new toolkit. All of a sudden, critics could analyze a movie character's slip of the tongue or a novel's structure as if it were a language, revealing some hidden, unconscious meaning. It was a game changer. And yet, we always come back to the challenge, don't we? This quote from Philippe Chamel just perfectly captures the experience of trying to read him. His style is deliberately difficult, full of puns and winding sentences, because he believed language itself can hide as much as it reveals. He forces you to work, to question the very tools you're using to try and understand him. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. You could say Lacan's great project was to teach us how to listen, not just to other people, but to the parts of ourselves that speak in a language we don't always understand. So the question he really leaves for all of us is this. If your unconscious is structured like a language, what message is it trying to send you right now?